One kid killing the parents is a bad seed. Two kids killing the parents is a bad family. What did your dad tell you?
Well, my dad told me that he knew about Donovan.
Now, did you know what he meant when he said he knew about Donovan?
Yes.
And what did he mean?
My friends had been telling me that Donovan was basically a con artist. And they were giving me different examples, especially Glenn.
Glenn who?
Stevens.
He give you examples of lies that Donovan had?
Yeah, he said that Donovan had written some poetry that he had hanging on his wall that his mother had given him, recognized as poetry, and that Donovan had showed it to him as if it was his. It had different poems he said he wrote. I think the name of it was The Man in the Glass, I'm pretty sure. And he said that he had read the paper that Donovan had helped me with at school. Donovan would help me with schoolwork or do some of it and be involved. And that Donovan could barely spell properly and the grammar was terrible, and there was no way that this kid had gotten into Princeton, especially transferring.
Did Glenn seem to be encouraging you to sever your relationship with Donovan?
Yes.
Did you want to do that?
No.
Why?
Because I loved him.
And so Glenn's giving you this information, and then you get a phone call from your father, is that right?
My dad found out somehow and said that he wasn't enrolled in the school and to move his stuff out.
Move Donovan's stuff out?
Mm-hmm. And get rid of him.
What did you say?
And he was furious, and he was saying, you know, this kid lied to my face, and you moved the fucking kid's stuff out. And he knew I wasn't going to want to do it. And I just sort of said, well, you know, maybe he has an explanation, you know, I'll talk to him. And he told me he would fly out and move his stuff out himself. And I definitely didn't want that to happen.
Did you believe he would do it?
Yes, I believed he would do it. And I figured he found out through my Aunt Terry somehow. And I expected him to fly out, but I told him I would handle it. He said, okay. So I had some more talks with Glenn, who also said that the kid, that he wasn't in the school, and although there didn't seem to be any way to verify it that we could find. But in any case, I had to get his stuff out, so I told him I'll just talk to him and I'll get his stuff out. And they said, no, we want to be in the room with you because we know you. You're gonna give in to this, to him, and you're gonna allow him to. The guy obviously tells, you know, lots of different stories, and so they sat in the room.
Who's they?
Glenn and Hayden. So we went in the room. I told Donovan I needed to talk to him, and I told him that it breaks my heart, but he's got to go. And
did it break your heart?
It did. And that he was crying, and he wanted to explain to us why this had all come about, which I now know the reasons, but Glenn basically was rushing me and rushing him, and next thing I knew we were moving his stuff out, and we wouldn't give him a chance to explain. I think one of my friends made a comment that you know, while he was taking time, he actually suggested that we leave and he take time to think about, get himself together, because he was crying, and explain to us why this happened. And somebody made a comment that he was just going to steal more things and that he was going to have to go now. And they backed his truck up to the window.
Who backed his truck up to the window?
Hayden. and started moving things into the car, into the truck.
Who was moving things into the car?
Glenn and Hayden and Donovan, and I took the time to try to sort out what was mine and his, because I had no idea on a lot of stuff. We shared clothes, we shared pretty much everything. So we did that, and my room was just a shambles, and I felt still like we were rushing him, but...
How did you feel when you were cleaning these things out?
I was losing the one friend I had, and I really felt in a way that it was going to be inevitable after the conversation in California. But once my dad found out that he wasn't even in Princeton, then he had lost all value to my dad. And so it really didn't matter how I felt about it. He was going to go. I wasn't going to be able to spend any time with him. So
How did Donovan seem?
And it hurt me that he had not told me the truth. I couldn't understand it, considering the other things he had told me. And
Did you confront him with that? Why did you lie?
No, I wanted to, but everything happened so fast, I couldn't.
Did Donovan appear to be sad?
He was crying.
Were you sad?
Yes. I don't know if I was crying or not, but I was very heartbroken over it.
So you said that they were putting things into Donovan's truck? Yes?
Yes.
How long did it take for them to get him moved out?
After I sorted the things out, not only 20 minutes at the most, put it all in the truck, and then Donovan got in and pulled out to the little street that goes through the campus, and I just watched him leave.
How'd you feel?
I felt bad for him.
How about
As
for
much.
you?
I was very sad over it, and I don't know, I thought somewhere, somehow, he and I would get back together.
Did you ever see him again after that until you saw him in this courtroom?
No.
Did you ever talk to him again after that have you ever had a conversation with him since then?
No. We didn't, we had no idea where he lived. Nothing. No.
Did you sometime later find that he had left some of his things behind?
Yes, he left quite a few things behind in the mess.
What did he leave behind?
He left a leather sack, like a note, I don't know, what you call it, like a notebook kind of thing, that pouch that had all kinds of effects in it, papers, letters, things like that. He left, I believe, his typewriter, if I remember, and a bunch of other papers, other things.
Did you at some point realize he had left behind his driver's license?
Yes.
When did you realize he'd left behind his driver's license?
We saw it among the stuff. It was in the leather pouch. And
When you say we saw it, who saw it?
Glenn and Hayden and myself.
And was that the day that he left, that you saw it in the leather pouch?
Yes.
And what did you do with it?
And his bank card, too.
What'd you do with those things?
Glenn took the bank card. And everything else I left there. And basically just left. I mean, I didn't really live there, so I just left everything a mess right there. And that day I was really, down, depressed, and I didn't even bother with any of the stuff. And Glenn was going to try to do something with the bank card to recover the amounts of money that he had taken from me, which he had taken money. But It didn't have the PIN number or anything, so he wasn't going to be able to do that anyway.
I'm sorry? All right.
Just a second. Did you at some point see his driver's license?
Yes,
When?
in the room after he left.
And where did you place the driver's license and the other papers? If you remember.
We just left him there.
In the room?
Mm-hmm.
Say yes?
Yes.
And when is the next time that you saw his driver's license?
My Aunt Terry found it when she cleaned out my room.
When was that?
It was about a month later or so.
Is that the end of the semester?
Yes.
And was your brother there for that weekend?
Yes.
What did you do with the driver's license?
She gave it to me, and I gave it to Erik,
Why did you give it to Erik?
so he could use it as a ID, since he and Donovan looked pretty much kind of like each other,
Why would he need an ID?
because he was underage. He was 18.
And Donovan was?
At that time, 22.
So he could get into places where they served alcohol?
Right.
After your Aunt Terry cleaned out your room, and you moved out of Princeton, did you return home to the Beverly Hills house?
Yes.
And were you scheduled to go back to Princeton in the fall?
Yes.
And how did you feel about going back to Princeton?
Much better.
Why?
Because of the arrangement my dad and I had made with the grades, which was a very large source of stress for me. And that had been alleviated, and just felt better. I was playing tennis at a high level, and I had not been able to play in the spring.
Why hadn't you played in the spring?
Because of the year suspension, I had a choice. I could either play that spring when I came back, or I could not play in the spring and then play the rest of the years. In other words, if I played that spring, I'd have to take my senior year off of tennis. And the coach wanted me to play that spring. Told my dad he didn't think it was a good idea for me just to be not playing for a semester, but my dad told him, no, I'll take the spring off, because with my age difference, I was going to be able to compete very favorably collegiately, because I was so much older. And he thought especially my senior year, I might have a good chance at a national championship because of my age and my ability. So take the spring off. So I didn't play tennis all spring.
Did you want to play tennis that spring?
I wanted to play, and occasionally coach would let me play with the team, but mostly I played with the girls until I met Isla, or played with other lesser people that weren't on the team but were good in the area, because I grew up there, so I knew enough players, so I played with them.
So you were going to get to play tennis for
So I was going to start on the team, and the guy that was really above me on the team, his name was Jacob Leshley, was gone because he had graduated. And so the expectation was that I would play the top spot, and it would be a good year. And so I was excited about that.
You were looking forward to playing tennis. Were you on probation?
I was on probation for the pool table incident.
Okay. Were you on probation for your grades also?
I was on a academic probation for failing one course, which my dad was not pleased about, because we had the agreement that I would pass them all. So my grades did drop, but too low. So they were gonna I opted to take it again as a 5th course the next year, instead of just not taking the credits. So I was just going to retake the course
And what was your housing arrangement going to be when you went back?
The housing was, I told my dad I really wanted to live off campus. And he agreed, especially after the fiasco with Donovan. His feeling was that hanging out at the school was a bad idea for me. It distracted me. It's a good idea I'd be off campus. And so we talked about it, and eventually I just wanted to rent something in town close by. The rents were pretty expensive. We were sort of talking about that, and at one point we had arranged maybe to rent a place in town, and then my mom was going to get a place next door. And then there were these great condominiums in this complex about a mile up the road, a half mile, a mile, something like that. And my dad decided to actually buy me a place so that I wouldn't have to worry. I could paint it or do what I wanted to do, and he would know where I was, and he would own the place. So he bought it.
Were you excited about living in the condo?
Very excited, especially since I had a kitchen, and I liked that.
Was your mom going to pick out furniture for you?
She was supposed to pick out furniture for me, but if for some reason, she was really in a bad way that summer, so I kind of expected my attorney and I to do it.
And was there a place in the condo where your parents were going to stay when they came to visit?
Yes, they were going to stay in the other suite. There were 2 suites in the condo.
So that would be their room, basically.
Right.
And were you looking forward to what your social life was going to be back in Princeton?
Yes, basically, I was going to be dating, hopefully, this girl named Isla, and she was on the tennis team, the girls' tennis team, and I had practiced with her constantly because I had I wasn't supposed to play with the team, so I played with her, and I called her many times in Austria where she lived over the summer, and I think the expectation was we would date when I got back.
Was she a Princeton student?
Yes.
Did you think that your dad might approve of her?
I think he would have approved of her. It's her family. She came from an illustrious family, actually royalty in Austria, and she was a tennis player, and she was very, I think he would have approved.
At some point that summer, less than a week before your parents died, did things start to change in your family?
Yes.
And the Tuesday before your parents died, did you have an argument with your mother?
Yes.
And what happened in that argument? Where was the argument?
In the den of the Beverly Hills house.
Who was there?
Just my mom and myself.
Did at some point your brother show up?
A few minutes later, yeah.
What happened in that argument? Do you remember what the argument was about? Or was it just...
Not exactly. I believe it had to do with my hairpiece. I mean, it definitely at some point had to do with my hairpiece. I don't know why I was talking to her exactly, but...
And in the course of the argument, did she start yelling at you?
Yes, she was completely out of control, just flailing her arms and screaming at me about how I was going to be the cause of her father's death.
Let me go back. Had your brother been playing at a tennis tournament just before this?
Yes.
And where was the tennis tournament?
In Michigan.
And Were there some travel plans that were supposed to take place after the tournament?
Yes.
What were those travel plans?
The three of them were gonna go visit my mom's dad in Canada,
Who's the three of them?
Erik and mom and dad.
And why were they going to go visit your mom's dad?
Because my mom said that he was very ill and possibly dying, and that this might be the last time she had a chance to see him.
And did they end up going to Canada to see her father?
No.
What happened that they didn't go to Canada?
My brother lost earlier in the tournament than my dad had expected. He was furious,
Who was furious?
my father, and decided he wasn't going to Canada, and to hell with my mom's dad. And so he made arrangements to fly back.
And why didn't your mother just go on to Canada with Erik?
Sustained.
Were you told why your mother didn't go to Canada with Erik?
Yes.
What were you told?
That was because he might have a girl like Louise waiting for him in L.A. while she was with her dad. She didn't trust him. So she wouldn't leave without him.
So what did they do?
So they all came back early.
And did your mom continue to be upset about the fact that she didn't get to go see her dad?
Yeah, she was more than upset. She was really as bad as I'd seen her as far as anger. Really blamed myself in a way that it was our tennis that was going to cause her father's death. And
But you hadn't been the one that lost. It was Erik.
right. But when my mom goes off, she talks about your whole life. She brings everything into it. You're born and ruined her dreams, and just your tennis had ruined her life, and you're ungrateful and spoiled, and it just builds. And she works herself into this frenzy where she's just completely out of control, and will grab things and throw them. And this conversation, she was out of control right away. And she had been that way since she had gotten back. Very down, angry, cold, and then just these explosions. And at this point, I was trying to have a conversation with her because she was in the den and seemed a little more relaxed, but she just exploded. And something about my hairpiece.
Did she do something?
Mm-hmm.
How long did this discussion, this argument, this rage go on?
Not very long. About a minute and a half, 2 minutes.
What did she do?
At some point, she was moving toward me, and I kind of put my arms up because she flails with her fists sort of wildly, and she reached and she grabbed my hairpiece, and she just ripped it off.
How was your hairpiece attached?
It's attached through like a solvent glue.
Under the skin?
Under the skin.
And what happened when she ripped it off? How did it feel?
Well, it was pain, because you're supposed to use this blue chemical to detach it, and you can rip it off, but I looked in the mirror, my head was welling up, and my eyes had tears in them from the pain more than the embarrassment. And
why were you embarrassed? Your mother knew you had a hairpiece, didn't she?
She knew, yeah.
What was embarrassing about this?
Just, being there in the house without it and her having ripped it off was just unbelievably embarrassing. And then my brother was there also.
When did your brother come in?
I'm not sure when he came in or if he was already in the house, but he was standing by the doorway when I started going toward her to get the hairpiece back, and she threw it back to me, and my brother was just sort of standing there.
What did you think when she had the hairpiece? What did you think she was going to do with it?
I thought she was going to, well, she was going upstairs, and for some reason she stopped, turned around and threw it at me. Said, "You don't need your fucking hairpiece." And, but she threw it at me, so I got it back. I only have one.
Did it worry you that she was going to take it away?
Yes, it worried me she was going to take it away.
Why?
That's just something my mother would do. Just keep it until my dad got home, which wasn't going to be for a few days. So I was going to go upstairs and try to get it from her if I could.
And what happened when you noticed your brother was there?
Nothing. I just looked at him and just really in shock over the whole thing. More my mother's, just that she would do that. Had never happened before, and she had had rages before close to me, hitting me. And so I left. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to talk to my brother, so I left.
Why didn't you want to talk to your brother?
Well, he didn't know I had a hairpiece. And so, my brother and I, there are things we don't talk about, and that was one of them.
Were you embarrassed in front of your brother?
I was completely embarrassed in front of my brother.
So what did you do?
So I went back to the guest house where I live to put it on. Back on.
Did your brother follow?
I was in the bathroom, putting it on with the temporary glue that they give us, and he came in and said he wanted to talk to me, and I told him, I'd be out in a few minutes, and I eventually came out.
Why didn't you let him come in and talk to you while you were putting it back on?
Because I was embarrassed. And, I was embarrassed. So I waited.
How were you emotionally? How did you feel?
I was still, I was very, basically trembling kind of thing from just the overall embarrassment of the whole thing and the shock of my mother's reaction. So I really didn't want to talk to my brother.
Were you angry at her?
I was angry, but that was sort of washed over by the whole shock of the whole thing.
So did you finish putting your hairpiece on before you talked to your brother?
Yes.
And when you came out, did you have a conversation with him?
Yes.
And did you talk about your mom or the hairpiece? Or what was the conversation?
He wanted to talk to me, and I could tell something was wrong, because he was sitting on the sofa, real timid, and...
What did he look like physically? You started to lean forward, did he?
Yeah, he was just sitting on the sofa like this.
Hunched over a little?
Yeah, his head was down, and I came in, he kind of looked up at me, and he looked down, and he said, "I want to talk to you." And I figured it was about my hairpiece or something, but it seemed like something was wrong, and something was wrong.
What did he say? State of mind, Your Honor. What did your brother say to you?
He told me that, some of his exact words, but he was very sad about the fact that he said we weren't a family, because there were so many secrets, and that basically saying that, he had never known about my hairpiece, which I knew, and that he was sorry that happened, and that he wished he had known, and I didn't have to be embarrassed. And
how did it make you feel when he was trying to comfort you this way?
not good, embarrassed.